All right, happy 420. Hello, everybody. And I don't care if you celebrate or not. I'm saying happy 420 to you, and peace be upon you, and peace unto you. I'm just kidding. Like, we were. Oh, okay. So my internet just went out. That's okay. That's why I switched from. That's actually the real reason I switched from Twitch and started doing YouTube, is because my internet isn't always guaranteed. Um, It could be. I'm just not lazy, but it's one of those things is like I'm trying to focus on solving a bunch of other problems and recreating before I start like really beefing up my internet. Now, not to say that I'm not working on something like that. Like there was a while ago I was actually collecting canned food because I needed some pieces of it to build this antenna. So I saw this, I think it was this Russian guy that built this antenna that severely boosted his Wi-Fi signal, and like he was able to get his Wi-Fi like miles away and like connect to it. And you still need the key, like the password, but it basically just makes it to where your Wi-Fi signal is so strong that it can be accessed from far away. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing because like it still has to travel that extra distance, but I don't know. Like the way that we're just like flying through. Let's see, I need some torches. So I need some sticks. I don't know. Okay, good. I do have some torches. All right. Oh, look at all of this stuff. Ah. So we can change the coal into blocks to save space. Phew. Yeah, consolidate that down. All that, and we'll take that back and cook that. But, mm. And as a happy 420, I do want to take a solemn moment to say, take a minute for the fallen, take whatever, but, and even praying. Like, praying I used to pray when I was a kid because I was raised Christian. I was like, pray and you can talk to Jesus, you can talk to God. When now I think that the whole act of praying is really more for reflection and meditation, where you're focusing on something. Do I believe that there's a God sitting up there listening to all of it? No. Much like that Putin Tucker interview, even though my opinion hasn't changed of both of those people. I don't like Tucker. I'm not a fan of Putin. I think Putin's a small child that's too scared to give up his control. And not even just that. Like, I mean, he's scared to give up his control maybe for what could happen if someone else leads. I can totally get that. Like, I've had projects where I haven't wanted to let other people take control because I'm worried that they won't do it right. But then what you get is you're sucking up all of the effort doing that and the control, and you're not letting other people make mistakes and then do a good job or even better job. And then there's pride involved in that. But it all comes down to he's the wealthiest person in the world. Like before Elon was, he's been the wealthiest for decades. Um, I mean, I can only fathom what, and no matter how much good he's done, he's still going to have a finger pointed at him, being like, "Look at this evil guy with all this money, hoarding all the wealth." It's really easy to do. Whereas if he were to share that with his country, like build a bunch of really nice things, which I want to say that they're doing, but or just understand that you don't need vast amounts of wealth to be happy. Like look at me. I'm extremely happy. I've got two amazing kiddos. We've got we've got VR, we've got PS5, we've got PS4, we've got all these tech devices. And I think if everybody had just a comfortable place to live, like not have to have roommates, that's the biggest thing. Is like, oh, you got to have roommates. Like because then you're inviting people that you don't have control over into your life. And for a bit of your life, that's fine, like your college years and stuff. But then after a while, it's like, nah, I'd kind of like my own space. Like, I'm kind of tired of having to share space with people. Now, there are shared spaces, and that's fine. Wow. We got way off on a tangent there, but we're going to continue spelunking and gathering these resources. And we're going to continue to talk about things. So, part of the reason I just wanted to bring up my dead friends and family is because they don't get to enjoy 420 or celebrate holidays or Christmas or Halloween or 4th of July or the Chinese New Year. I'm trying to think of like holidays that aren't just centralized here in America. We celebrate a lot. I mean, we celebrate being alive, enjoying life, but then it's hard because then we realize, oh wait, there's people out there that because of our country or whatever. Oh, jeez, that is so dangerous. Are not living their best lives. Not even living, some of them. Like, they're dead. half a million people during the Iraq-Afghanistan war. Half a million people. We got so mad and freaked out about COVID when it killed half a million people. And granted, that was in a year. That was a much shorter time span. Whereas the Iraq-Afghanistan war, or our occupation, or whatever you want to call it, half a million civilians died. And that's the number that I keep seeing reported. I keep seeing. I could be wrong. I could be fact checked and be like, someone could be like, actually, only 200,000 people died. Well, that's still a lot of people for 20 years, like 200,000. My hometown, the population of Buena Vista is still hovering around 2,000 people. So if you were to go to Buena Vista, just completely blow it up, and then go to the next 100 places, then you'd get 200,000 people dead. And I'm still thinking it's closer to half a million. So if you were to just go and do that, oh, the whole world would see you as Hitler. Like, yet we're still the greatest country on earth and blah, 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 and all this. And, and not because any of us on the ground level had any say in it. In fact, quite the opposite. A bunch of people, usually people after they use cannabis, start to protest wars and they start to think about it. Be like, hey, wait a minute. Is this necessary? Like, why are we doing this? Why are we allowing people to go and kill people? In this day and age, like, okay, the Crusades back in the day, people were more savages. We're supposed to be civilized now. And that's why the kind of like the most ridiculous thing to see, or one of the more ridiculous things to see, is British people and war. Like, if you watch the Inglorious Bastards, for, uh, it's a great movie, very funny, very dark too, because it's a dark subject. It's World War II, where people are being exterminated because of their beliefs. The Jewish people were being killed by the millions. And again, I hate that we have to say millions. Like, one person dying should be enough to be like, you know what, that sucks. Let's not do that anymore. Like, let's try to never do that again. Like, oh, and then we remember up until we don't, and then heat of passion, wealth inequalities, all sorts of different factors can lead to like gunfights and all that, and then all out war is just a lot of miscommunication. And Google for the win. Sorry, I also want to build one of these things closer here, so I don't have to go looking for it. And they're really easy to build. It's just that. And then you can fill it up as much as you want. Okay. So I have a way to get back up now, so let's actually Geronimo. Oh, that's sketchy though. Oh, that won't hurt too bad. Okay, still hurts. All right, now where are we at? It's like a whole nother layer of stuff to find. And I really do hope that everybody's off into heaven, that their spirits are watching down on us and all my dead friends and relatives, and they're just up there chilling, playing their own video games, probably eating mushrooms, smoking weed, and like just chillaxing. And that's a dangerous thing too. Like magic mushrooms, and they're illegal in many places. They're now legal in Colorado. Like I don't really know anybody that's imbibed legally. In fact, I've fallen so out of touch of the younger people that would be experimenting with things like that. All the people I know have already been there, done that, and like most people now just drink coffee and maybe smoke a little weed, but like they don't do any of that crazier stuff now. Mostly. I still know a couple people, and that's kind of like the rule of like life, nature. Like as you grow older, you become less curious about those things, or you've experienced them. And you're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on now, and I'm good. Like it was fun, but leave it there. Like now, however, the people that are suffering from a lot of more like mental anguish and problems, mushrooms are a great move. And I was reading an article that I think it's actually going to be illegal, or social media companies are going to be able to ban you for promoting these things. And it's just one more like power move from people that don't want things to change, and they're like, "Oh no, we can't have these people," especially the pharmaceutical companies that developed antidepressants. Like mushrooms basically remove the need for antidepressants, and antidepressants can actually make you depressed if it's not managed correctly, or if it's or there's a number of factors that through really no fault of anyone that can lead to weight gain, more depression, more sad, more anger, more all this, when all they needed was to go to a clinic in a safe, protective environment, eat some mushrooms, and giggle for like 6 hours, and then go home, be done, and then you're no longer depressed. Like that's as easy as it is, and people are finding that out. And we had to use the extremes too. So mushrooms, they treat PTSD, which you can get from killing somebody. Now soldiers for queen and country, for king and country, for whatever. I mean, that's the British thing, but for America, you go serve the military, you go and fight our wars to go like steal oil or whatever, or oppress people, or make sure these people aren't popping off, and there's a good chance you'll kill somebody. Now, your brain isn't meant to handle that. That's why it was the Ten Commandments originally. That's the oldest that I know about it. And then there's Hammurabi's Code, which were a set of laws like don't kill people. Like that's one of the biggest things. It's like, hey, you're alive, they're alive. Don't change that. But everything up until that is still pretty bad, but not nearly as bad as this. And that's like in a nutshell all of that. Now, say you've killed somebody. Oh gosh, now you've got PTSD. Your life, your quality of life isn't all that great. And a lot of soldiers actually commit suicide. They kill themselves because they just can't live with the fact that I ended someone's life. Like everything I see, everything I experience, all of these happy things, I get to experience, but I took away that from somebody else. I am now responsible for somebody not seeing this, not seeing this beautiful sunrise or these, and this is all Minecraft stuff too, like not being able to go outside, and we actually have snow right now, and see the beautiful glistening snow on the ground. I mean, yeah, it's a little cold, but it's beautiful. And oh, snowboarding. Like say that person never got to snowboard or ski in their life. Now they're dead. So, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow for people. So that's how we actually got mushrooms legalized because we're a very big military state too. A lot of military people live here and have suffer with PTSD. Now, ultimately, yes, the scalable solution, and if you're thinking in computer science terms, you would go and prevent the death from happening in the first place, a preventative measure, which is totally huge in programming because if you have a bug, you will try to avoid that bug in the future. You will code differently, or you will at least like remember what you did to fix that bug, and you will add it to your code in the future when you run into situations like that. Like, aha, I need to be careful with, like an example is index out of bounds. Well, okay. Now, you could just use a language that just doesn't worry about indices or the programmer having to set indices. Like Java makes you declare, okay, do it until this and no more, or this is the exact amount to do it, or the number of times to go through this loop. Whereas Python, it's a lot more overhead, like it's a lot more costly with energy and space and time and all that. But I mean, not a lot. Like you'd have to like really get down to the nitty gritty to find exactly how much and like whether it's worth it or not to write in Java or Python. But the bug is probably not going to be in Python because Python, it does a really easy thing where it has built-in iterators where you choose, okay, I have this list or a group of things. Do everything in this list and then do this to everything in that list and then done. Super easy. Whereas in Java, you'd have to be like, okay, so do this for the size of the list minus one because indices start at zero and then they go up. So everything is offset and the actual index of something is really one less than the number of items it is. So the third item is at indice 2 because the first item is at indice 0 or the initial indice or no movements away from the memory address of this thing. Whew, sorry. It's hard to describe that stuff without adding that extra context and that extra information. So, and that's what it is. Now with killing people, if you're trying to solve that problem, and I consider that a huge bug in society, the fact that we still have people killing people over anything. It could be like a lover's quarrel, it could be thieving, it could be, most of the time it's just, well, drugs and money, I mean, or war or power. I mean, there's different reasons, but so as a computer scientist, my thinking would be like, okay, let's start slowly disarming each one of these factors so it's not a factor anymore. So it doesn't even enter into the equation. Like, okay, if you don't have this extreme wealth inequality, basically Hollywood and Wall Street, if we got rid of those, like, or just fixed it to where people couldn't get insanely wealthy like that. Now, think about it. Every movie, everything, like, it's not proportional to the work, of course. But then I'd almost say the actors and actresses aren't really doing as much work as some of the other people behind the scenes. Yet because it's their face, and and people want to go see a movie with that actress or actor in it, it's almost kind of that fandom. But at the same time, it's like, why not make everybody earn a little more equal pay of that? And why does it have to be so much money in the first place? So yeah, it costs a lot of money to make something. You got to pay people's salaries. You got to use a bunch of CGI and like stuff like that. And it's really expensive to make a movie. But then you get these people that make millions of dollars just for doing one of those. And it's like, okay, you won a lottery of sorts. Like, yay, now what are you going to do? Well, now you don't have a purpose unless you do more movies or more work. But then you just keep getting more and more insane amounts of money. And then what do you do with it? Well, unfortunately, a lot of people with communication technology becoming so great and so easy to use, people are realizing, like, wait, I have a lot of money. I could do some things. I'm me. I have money. And then, we need to funnel that, though, into building affordable housing. That's the big thing. Or using the law to enforce that companies cannot continue this vicious cycle of expensive living situations. And it doesn't matter if you're drunk or if you're on drugs or whatever. Like, that should not determine that you can still pay less to live. That's it. You shouldn't be paying an arm and a leg just to live in this on this earth. Now, the fancy amenities, sure, make places more expensive to have more things like a pool, a hot tub, or exercise room or whatever. But in the meantime, and that's what we're doing here in Fort Collins, we built Mason Place, which is a facility specifically for people in between homes that need a place to stay and that qualify for the program. And it's a communal style housing, and I think that you have to have a bit of sobriety to it. Like, there's a sobriety aspect that's required, and which is true. Like, you need, if you're gonna start fixing up your life, you need to take a moment away from alcohol mainly, but definitely the other like harder drugs. Mushrooms, those aren't like a thing that you could really use every day. Like, that's like it's a big experience, a trip. Like, you're gonna have to take that day off and just assume that nothing's gonna get done that day. At least nothing that other people are gonna depend on. You're gonna just go into a world, have an experience for like, and it's really only like 4 to 6 hours, and then fall asleep. Next thing you know, you wake up, you're back to normal, no harm done. Except that you're extremely happy and you have a renewed lease on life a lot of times. Sometimes, no, you could have a bad trip, especially if you run into like police or, if it's still illegal in your area. That's where the scary comes from. That's where the danger comes from. Because then you get arrested, put in jail, like charged with a crime. Like, oh my gosh, like you have these silly beans in your pocket. All these silly beans, let's give you years in prison. Like, no, you're just introducing a whole lot of more problems, causing people to experience homelessness, causing these wealth inequalities. Like, and people are starting to realize that. They're like, oh crud, we're actually doing more harm than good, you know. And doctors too, the what is that, the Hippocratic Oath, which never really made sense to me because a hypocrite means does what they against what they say. Like, if you're a hypocrite, you're going to do the opposite of what you've been preaching, basically. Or it's like an oxymoron or something. But the Hippocratic Oath means, it says do no harm, and basically like do everything you can not to harm somebody. That's it. Look at the opiate pandemic. Bunch of doctors in this country were like, yeah, Oxycontin, great pain reliever. And I know somebody that is now dead. He died from huffing because he was trying to get those brain chemicals to release that he was so used to, because a doctor gave him this pill that made him just feel complete euphoria of opiates. And like, and have all these chemicals rush in your brain, and it's highly addicting because you're like, holy cow, I feel like I just saw my kid's face for the first time, bought a house, provided shelter for my family, like started a clan, like all of these things that our body is normally supposed to reward us with reward chemicals, but it's a shortcut. It's artificial. And then you wake up, you're like, wait, none of those things happened. Like, I don't get to feel all that glory and everything. Now I just feel cruddy and I'm like short a bunch of money. And that's like the reality of a lot of like opiate stuff. But a lot of it comes from doctors. And law enforcement, it's okay, you could get caught with all these pills if you have a prescription, but if you don't have a prescription, that's years in prison. So right there, you're trying to like fix this problem that was introduced artificially by medical professionals that are supposed to have your best interests and the Hippocratic Oath, but yet, oh, now you have an addiction to opiates. And addictions can be reversed and fixed with mushrooms, again. But mushrooms are illegal. Wait, what? So wait, we have this substance that can fix someone's addiction to these opiates that the doctors, and it's not always doctors, but most of the time it is. Now, it's also just people like, hey, here's a shortcut to happiness. Your life not going great, you weren't born into wealth, or like you're not a famous musician or actor or whatever. Here, take this substance and you'll see what it feels like to be that person. but you're not going to be that person, and you're going to wake up to reality in a few hours anyway, and then you're going to feel even worse because you're like, oh crud, I got to get that feeling again. And that is addiction in a nutshell. It's a shortcut to happiness that is really easy to take, and then once you've experienced that, normal life is kind of dull, kind of gray, kind of bleh, like, and that's why people go and will seek out these substances. Now, there's other healthy ways to find those reward chemicals, like having a good job, a career, volunteering, helping people, like knowing that you made a difference. All of these things will release the exact same, maybe not the same amounts, but the exact same happy chemicals into your brain. And that's what wealthy people are starting to find out is like, oh, I can feel really good about myself by doing charity or philanthropy. And that's why we were just starting to briefly talk about J.K. Rowling on the last episode. No matter how you feel about transgender issues, J.K. Rowling donated $160 million. I'll say that again, $160 million to a foundation that she started for poor kids. So for the Harry Potters of the world that wish that they were secretly a wizard and that they could secretly go off to this wonderful fantasy land and live these magical lives, and no matter what your economic background, or even if you don't have parents, your parents died in a car crash or something horrible, no problem. I mean, yes, it'll hurt, but you're a wizard. You can go just make magic, like do these shortcuts, like only they're like more ethical shortcuts than like drug use and stuff. I mean, it's like, ugh. And a lot of people don't understand that. What people will see on paper is like, oh, he's got a little bit of drugs in his pocket. Let's put him in prison. Like, let's take away his, and then you lose your job because then you're a criminal. You're in the criminal justice system. Oftentimes you'll lose your job, or like if you're in jail. Now, fun fact: I was in jail for a weekend, and I just called my boss and I was like, hey man, I'm in jail. I'll be out on this day. I'm so sorry. Can you cover my shifts? And it was done. Oh, look at the rain. That's so cool. And I still had a job waiting for me when I got done. And I only took a couple of days, and it was fine. So, whereas other things, and we'll get into that maybe on some private channels because I don't really like talking about a lot of that stuff in case my kids see it or something. This is a big thing, but also like, I'm not trying to glorify breaking the law. Like the laws need to be changed, and that's how you like do the long-term scalable solutions. Again, like computer science is more concerned about fixing the problem for good, so you're not doing rework rather than, oh, I'm already full up. Look at that. Okay. I'm not going to have room for this, but I am going to get rid of some cobblestone or andesite. Andesite's kind of a boring stone in this game. Like, it looks just like this. I mean, a lot like the stone. See, it's just there, but it's got like a little bit of texture, which, okay. But I mean, it looks more like what I think cobblestone would look like. Alright, now. Oh, that is so cool because the rain is falling all the way down. Look how deep we are. We gotta be careful going back up there, but we can go up this thing. Yeah, this is safe. Well, safe is subjective. It's safer than what some other ways we could go up. And you gotta be careful because you can drown using these ways up. Like, you gotta get some air every now and then, but you can't go too far. So then you could end up falling to your death. Oh no! Okay. Whew. Alright, let's go unload and stuff. So, anyways, yes, like I said, happy 420. I am getting closer and closer to building the altars for my fallen friends. And that's what I do. Like, I don't really pray anymore. Like, I do more meditation. I'll talk to my dead friends and family and just be like, hope everything's going well, stuff like that. And if they hear me, great. Message received. And then they know that I'm thinking about them and that but you can't be paralyzed thinking about the dead because I mean, well, at least I know if I was in some place, unless there was some reason I'm not seeing or thinking about, I would want to be like, hey, live your life, go have fun, and then I'll just be up here watching. I like to think that's what it is. And ultimately, most likely, the thing that makes the most sense is when you're dead, and you just like it's just black, and then you get recycled into the world, the universe, and then there you go. And it's kind of a stretch too. Like Scientologists, and again, this is a South Park thing, think that Xenu is up there controlling the souls that go up into like this soul vacuum and they get pumped back down into the earth. Like, and but if you describe it in a different way, it actually kind of makes sense because even if you just like glaze over Christianity, it is bad, crazy. Like it is weird. Like what? Like but it could be time travelers, it could be Xenu, it could be like all of these different things. And if you just slightly tweak something, it suddenly becomes possible. Like, wait a minute, okay, I see. And really, time travelers is the best like excuse or explanation that I can think of. But then it's scary because it's like, well, what are time travelers like? They could like police me or whatever I'm doing. Mm. Which yes goes back to thou shalt not kill. In fact, we should put the Ten Commandments here and get away from. I think that's really Judaism, honestly. Like Moses is the and then Jesus violated the Ten Commandments. No idols, no false idols. Like the fact that Jesus, and it's not a fact, it's not proven in any way, and that's why I have such an issue with it. Because people said that this one guy, this one human, was king, was God, was the. Now it's the meek inheriting the earth, and I think he was a bunch of hippie. He was a hippie with a group of hippies living in poverty, understanding the problems of the average person. I don't like that small. Maybe we could think of that as a mist, I guess. The mist of the jungles. Almost looks like air pollution, unfortunately, because that's our reality today. That's why I love all the trees, because trees actually clean up the air. But anyways, no, back to Jesus and false idols. So way back when, in fact, we should probably write all this down. And eventually I'm going to do this. This is just like the religious section. I'm going to have the government section here, and maybe like computer programming over here. Like just like, just altars of things that just books and education and training. I'm going to continue to refine these things. I look a little pony. Um, let's leave the water buckets here too. Just to kind of communicate these things. Because at the end of the day, all it takes is a little sit down and a chit chat with someone from another country to find that we're all the same. Our differences, which there are a huge amount of differences, are so small and insignificant that it's not worth death. That's the biggest thing that I try to drive home in these things. Is I've traveled the world, I've talked with many people of many different backgrounds. I've traveled the world here. I've hung out with people in backgrounds that are often overlooked, like the poor and the imprisoned communities, like I mean the homeless population, like talking with some, hearing a bunch of their different stories, and then the gangbangers too. Like I've had a bunch of gangster friends that like they tell me stories where it's like, yeah, I used to slang and all this, and I talk to these homeless people, really connect with them. At the end of the day, I still sold them drugs, and then I take their money. But like, and that's not me talking. I never worked with people in between houses. Well, not never, I could say, but that wasn't a thing. Like, I mean, my whole thing was like, weed isn't that bad. Why doesn't everybody see this? And I was trying to more encourage people to be like, try it. Like it's like that flat Earth thing. Like okay, if the Earth is really flat, throw me off the edge of it. And there's a Wishbone episode about that. The little dog that would read books to kids or to explain the stories. And they'd get permission to do these like reenactments. Or actually, I don't even think they needed permission because the stories are so old. They were common domain. But anyways, one of the stories was okay. The Earth is flat. Then throw me off the edge of it. And then they couldn't find the edge, and so they're like, okay, well, let's put a pin in that. And they eventually gave up. But it's like, there once was a time in our human history where we thought that the Earth was the center of the solar system, that the sun revolved around the Earth, and that was the biggest thing why like Christianity is such a farce. Just parts of it, not all of it. Like most of it's fine, but the idea that Jesus was God and that the vanity of that, like especially now that Jesus is almost always a white guy, because most of Christianity flourished in white areas, like where the people were generally of a lighter skin, a paler skin, less or a different pigment makeup. That's it. That's it. It's just the pigmentation of their skin, and like a few tiny other little details too. But and that goes back to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I was watching a video with him, like where he actually had the numbers. Like the physical human body only differs by like 1 to 5% between people of different ethnic backgrounds. Whereas like the normal idea is like, oh, if you're from this and you look like this, you're way different. But the actual brain, the skeleton, like the body, the biology, all of it is so similar to where The differences are negligible. You could ignore the differences and be like, okay, that's a person and that's a person, and be totally fine and make total sense. So, anyways, that's my time for now. I gotta get ready. My kiddos are gonna be here any minute. So, happy Saturday and yeah, happy snow day. Like I said, it snowed here. I actually had to turn the heat on again. Springtime in Colorado, but yes, we are the land of legal weed and now legal shrooms, and we're gonna show the world. We're gonna fix love. There's gonna be some bumps along the road. There's gonna be some friction, but overall, I know a lot of people that have meditated with hallucinogens, and the common thread is that clarity and the peace, wanting to keep the peace with everybody, and seeing the good in everybody, the potential good. Hippy dippy. There's a reason it's hippy dippy. It's totally hippy dippy. But is that such a bad thing? I say no. So, anyways, ta-ta for now. I will see you in the next one. Happy 420, everybody. And for those that we've lost and are no longer with us, that went over that rainbow bridge or whatever you want to call it, went to heaven, happy 420 to them too. I hope they rest in peace. Rest in power, but resting either way. Ta-ta. Now this looks a little macabre. Let's get back out of the water. I'm not going to drown. Okay. But happy 420, everyone. See you in the next one.